Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Westside UU's Sunday Morning Reflection. I'm the Reverend Carol Bedeau. I am privileged to serve Westside as minister, and I'm thrilled to have you here today. Thank you for taking time out of your week to spend just a little bit of time in reflection and centering with us here at Westside. We are grateful for your presence, even if it's just virtual. This week, we're talking about intentions. How do we get to good intentions? Most of us, whether we're UUs or not, have a tendency to think that our intentions are good. And at the same time, we also have a tendency to question the motives or intentions of other people. So today we're going to talk about just what exactly does it mean to get to a good intention and what's a process by which we might consider getting there. So I invite you to take a deep breath and settle in as we begin our time of reflection. Each week as we begin our time together, we use the sound of a singing bowl and the lighting of a flame to help us come into our most calm, centered place, into that place where we can find a little stillness and be a little more reflective. So I'm going to light our chalice and then invite the bowl to sound before we begin. The words for our chalice lighting this morning come from inspirational speaker Simon Sinek. For values or guiding principles to be truly effective, they have to be verbs. It's not integrity, it's always do the right thing. It's not innovation, it's look at the problem from a different angle. Articulating our values as verbs gives us a clear idea. We have a clear idea how to act in any situation. As I invite our bowl to sound, I invite you to reflect for just a moment on what you consider your highest values. What are the values that you most desire to live in the world, to embody, and to express with your life? And now let us reflect on good intentions. So consider this question for a moment. Do you believe that you, for the most part, have good intentions? Do you see yourself as someone whose values, ideals, goals, and general way of doing things is basically good? Most of us would, of course, answer these questions yes. We do have a fairly deep confidence in our own values or our own basic assumptions being good. But what criteria do we have, conscious or unconscious, to assess that? And do we check back in with ourselves regularly to ask ourselves, well, what are my basic goals and values and intentions? I know that for many of us, certainly for me at different times and in different ways in my life, my intentions, my values, my goals have been largely unconscious. They were passed on to me by my family, by my community, by my teachers, my religious community, and my society at large. Some of our values are for certain things, for justice, for equity, for compassion, for example. And some of our values are against things, against intolerance, against waste, against greed. But as the words for our chalice lighting suggest, it can be tricky translating our values, these abstract concepts, into actions, verbs, ways of doing things. So just what does it mean to actually be compassionate or act in a compassionate way? What does it mean to act in a way that's fair? In other words, how do our abstract values translate into specific actions? Now, Simon Sinek, the writer of those words for our chalice lighting, He's one of TEDx's most popular speakers. He's spoken a number of times. He's a very well-known inspirational and motivational speaker. He's spoken for the UN Global Compact Leaders Summit. He's the head of an organization called Optimum Press, which is a new branch of Penguin Random House. He's an instructor at Columbia University, an adjunct staff member of the RAND Corporation. So in other words, he's a very well-known and highly respected speaker on the issue of putting values into action. His words that we use for the chalice lighting come from his first book, which is called Start with Why: How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action. And his work is based on the premise that we start too often with what should I do, with the action, but not with the why should I do it. We ask ourselves, which product should I buy or create, or which class should I offer or take? What church or school should I attend? These questions, according to Simon Sinek's view of things, miss the mark because they don't start at the beginning, the why of our basic values, and then translate those basic values into specific actions or intentions. Too often we set our what, our actions, without deeply exploring the actual why values. So we miss that step of translating why into what. We state why in abstract terms, and we choose what, often in ways that are unconnected to that why. The what is often unconsciously chosen, and our why is often poorly articulated. So Simon Sinek created a model, sometimes it's called his golden circle, to help us with this process, to be more precise with it. So the first circle in this diagram of 3 circles, the center, puts our attention on the question why. Why do you want to change careers? Why do you want to start a business? Why do you want to do more justice work? Why do you want a romantic partner? Why do you want to move to a new house or a new town? Now, in his model, he's mostly talking about business sense. For example, why do you start a company, or why do you want to grow your organization? He compares companies that start with a clear why of their values and goals. For example, here's a very clear why. We want to serve a new generation with technology that matches their dreams. It's a very precise why. He compares that with a company that starts with what? We want to make computers that are very high speed. They're very different ways of starting. The latter, the what people, he says, are stuck. Once you accomplish that goal, you don't really have anywhere to go. But the former, the why group, have a lot more room to grow and change and develop over time. So here's a little bit more of what Simon Sinek says around that passage about putting our values into verb form. He says this: very few people or companies can clearly articulate why they do what they do. By why, I mean your purpose, your cause or belief. Why does your company exist? Why do you get out of bed every morning? And why should anyone care? People don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. We are drawn to leaders and organizations, and I would add individuals, that are good at communicating what they believe. Their ability to make us feel like we belong, to make us feel special, safe, and not alone is part of what gives them the ability to inspire us. And he goes on with those words we already heard. For values or guiding principles to be truly effective, they have to be verbs. It's not integrity, it's always do the right thing. It's not innovation, it's look at the problem from a different angle. Articulating our values as verbs gives us a clear idea. We have a clear idea of how to act in any situation. So, I don't know about you, but I like to-do lists. But before we can even start that to-do list, especially the big to-do lists for the week or the next stage in life or our bigger goals for a company, for an organization, for an individual, before we can make that to-do list, we have to ask the real question, why in the world do I want to do this? What do I or we really care about enough to act passionately? Then we can move from why to how in the most general terms. So that's the second circle in his golden circle. It doesn't go from why to what, it goes from why to how. So that's not let's make a particular widget, but let's create tools. And then maybe at what we get to a particular widget. Not now I'll offer a 6-week workshop on this book, but I think I'll create learning experiences. That's a how. Only after we've thought through why and general how ideas can we actually get to an effective to-do list. Now, for Unitarian Universalists especially, and maybe for a lot of other people, this skipping all of the why and the how is kind of normal because we are people who like to get things done. Action is important to us. We might be uncomfortable with the idea of spending a lot of time reflecting on why and how. We sort of think, well, we already got that figured out. We might think it's kind of a waste of time and want to get straight to getting the list of things done. But in fact, that's actually counterproductive. Even if our difficulty, our problem, or our challenge is just being out of corn chips and we're saying we need to go to the store, it's not always the worst thing in the world to ask ourselves, why do I need the corn chips? Is that something I always have to have? I know that sounds trite, but really, if you think about it, we do so many things out of habit. We keep our to-do list of what I should do so routine and so unconscious that we often don't stop to think about it. And that is particularly true for the really big things that we need to get clear on. Now, sometimes we will use our to-do list actions as a way of stalling, as a way of avoiding the big questions. Lots of times it seems to me that we can make to-do lists to avoid hard, deep reflection. I know I've certainly been guilty of that at times in my life. There are times when I would rather make a to-do list of simple, relatively inconsequential tasks, easy things to check off, than to sit down and do the hard work of reflecting on my values, having a difficult conversation, reassessing the path I'm on. One of the hardest levels of assessment we have to do is to regularly check in with ourselves and see if we're actually living the values we proclaim. Sinek's way of phrasing this is to say that trust is maintained when values and beliefs are actively managed. If companies do not actively work to keep clarity, discipline, and consistency in balance, then trust starts to break down. I think this is true for us as individuals too. We may have started, let's say, a relationship with the good intention of having regular date nights or deep, honest conversation, but over time, we lose our commitment or our consistency or our passion for those behaviors. Trust breaks down. We may have felt committed to a particular artistic project or a new skill, but not done the regular assessment and checking in needed to actively manage that vision. So we let it go after one workshop, reading a couple books. In other words, it's not enough to get a wise statement once and then just assume it's good and solid forever. It needs to be a verb. It needs to be an action that we keep alive. So good intentions. What do you assume are your best intentions? Do your actions match your intentions today as solidly as they did when you first put them in place? When's the last time you revisited your most basic intentions? Have things changed so that your how and your what need to be adjusted? Maybe your why is the same, but your how and your what are no longer current. Have you changed so that your how, your what, or maybe even your why are different? It's certainly the case that our world has changed dramatically and is changing very rapidly right now. Many of us are feeling a strong need, even an imperative, to step back and reassess things a little bit. This is true at the personal level, it's true at the community level, the national, the global, the planetary level. We can apply this principle to matters of ecology and economy and social issues and justice, personal finance, physical health, mental health. At all levels, this might be useful. So today, I invite you to consider thinking about your why. Consider reflecting on your own good intentions and see if they have the kind of substance, the kind of depth, and the kind of passion you might wish them to have. See if perhaps you might need to adjust or hone them a little bit. Maybe prune the to-do list so that you're doing fewer things and more consistently enacting your deeper values. One of the biggest challenges we can have, and I mean this for individuals, families, organizations, or communities, we can set so many good intentions that the list is too long. So if the list of things we're trying to do is too complex, we probably won't feel very good about accomplishing it. So maybe it's time for all of us to just step back a little bit. Maybe there's an opportunity to step back and ask, why? Why? And which why is the most important and alive for me right now? From there, we can ask, well, how? What are the best ways or methods for me right now to enact that why? And then we can make the to-do list. Then we can say, well, what does that look like this week? I invite you to explore and experiment with this process. If you're curious, check out Simon Sinek's YouTube videos, his TED Talks, just for a little bit of a new perspective on how we might create actions to create the world we dream of. As we go into the world, we extinguish our chalice. But we know that these values of community and truth and commitment and passion stay with us. So we extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of this community. They go with us until we are together again. Go in peace.
Westside isn't perfect. Some things around our building could use a fresh coat of paint and a little TLC. But ask any Westsider and they'll tell you. What makes Westside a good place and a good community isn't the building. It's the people.
Westside is a vibrant community whose members and friends are committed to it and to each other and to the values that we all hold dear.
It's an ambience of people who are trying to be better people, trying to take better care of each other and of the earth, and that is what I need.
So if you're in search of something more, if you're looking for a community of smart, caring, and engaged people dedicated to making the world just a little bit better, you might find a home at Westside. Westside Unitarian Universalist Church. Warm hearts, open minds, caring hands.